Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. And thank you for joining us on this afternoon for Girls Night In, the first episode of the Girls Night In podcast. And I have with me here on this afternoon, Katie Littles, our special guest on this afternoon. So again, I want to welcome you to the Girls Night In podcast. And here at Girls Night In, we are here to help you gain insight that will inspire you, inform you, innovate you, and increase you. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and take some time to share this broadcast out. And I also want to welcome my podcast listeners that will be hearing the broadcast at a later time. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests on this afternoon, and we're going to go ahead and get started and get into what we've come here to talk about on this afternoon. So Katie Littles has a passion for studying and teaching God's word. Her vision is to impact the world, and impact is the acronym for imparting meaningful, practical, and God-centered teachings through God-inspired books, study guides, blog posts, Bible teachings, and interviews. Her desire is to see others mature in Christ, strengthen their relationship with God, and live promise-filled lives. So welcome, Katie, to the Girls Night In first episode of our podcast. So and we're so glad to have you here. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and I count it an honor to be on your very first episode of your new podcast. So I'm nervous and excited at the same time.
Okay. So before we get started, I do want to let the people know a couple other things about you. Katie is the author of the book God's Promises Are For Me. It's a devotional. And you can also catch her on Power Surge every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can catch her on that. And also you can check out her book. And Katie, can you tell everybody where to purchase your book?
You can purchase the book from Amazon, and it's called Meditating on the Promises of God. And I will put the link in the comment section, I think. Maybe I can get the link and put it in the comment section for you. But it's Meditating on the Promises of God, and you can purchase it through Amazon. Just search for my name, but I will get the link and put it in there for you.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I have a question for Katie, and we're both going to discuss the question. And before I get into that question, I do want everybody to know that I received the question from another broadcast of a bunch of great women, Sisters of Legacy. So that's where I got this question from. They was doing a survey concerning, are you a self-sabotager? And this was one of the questions, and it stuck out to me. So I wanted to talk about it here on the broadcast. And the question is, imagine, and if you're listening, you can also do this along with us. Imagine that your life is a house with many rooms. How many people do you allow to see all of your rooms? That could be like no one, because sometimes we don't want to let people in. It could be a significant person like your spouse or your sister or sibling or your mom or something like that. And then some people, they let everybody in the room. It doesn't matter how it look. It doesn't matter if the house is clean or not. You can come over. And then the second part of that question is, what room can no one enter and why? So before I allow Katie to speak on that, when I think about this question, I think about my life, and maybe someone has also experienced this, but there are times in my life, and hello to all of those that are joining us on this afternoon. And actually you can't share because the group is private, so it's not going to allow you to share the broadcast out. But it will be posted on YouTube and in other places. And so, and maybe someone can relate to this, but in my natural life, like dealing with rooms, I would have everything cleaned up. Like everything would be organized. The parts that people could see would be organized. It would be clean. It would be well put together. But then those things you could not see, I would have things stored there. I would be hoarding things. It would be junky. Or it would be organized junk because I was trying to pack everything everything inside this one little space. And that was the part that other people could not see. But what I realized was that how I was in the natural, I was also that way spiritually or mentally and emotionally. And that there was things that people saw about me, but then there was other things that I was hiding that nobody could see. It was tucked away, and nobody had a chance to see those things. And I thought that this was a good question, because sometimes in life we can show a side of ourselves, but then there's another side of ourselves that no one gets to see, or we don't want anyone to see, because we haven't cleaned up in that area, or we're just not willing to clean up in that area. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Katie start off first. So if your life was a house with many rooms, how many people do you allow to see your rooms, or just particular rooms? And what room could no one see, and why would that be that no one could see that room?
Well, there would be very few people, probably just off the top of my head, maybe 5 people that could even come into the house to begin with. And if I allowed anyone to see all the rooms, it would be my husband, because living with someone, you see things that other people don't get to see anyway. So I definitely, even though I have tried to hide rooms from him before, but if I had to let anyone see all the rooms, it would definitely be my husband, because I trust him to for something like that. But I don't think other than that, there's not anyone else who would get to see all the rooms. And there are definitely some rooms that no one would ever be able to see. And like you were saying, about the outside rooms are nice and neat, but then you try to hide stuff, and I do the same thing. And I remember not long ago, my husband, he was cleaning. And so I can always tell when he's stressed, because he cleans, but he doesn't like clean. He will put stuff out of sight. Like it doesn't matter if it belongs in that spot or not. He does that. And then so he did that, and he had been doing this for years. But this particular time, when I was looking at it, I was like, why does he do that? And God was like, well, people do that. They hide their old stuff. They hide the new stuff in with the old stuff, and then they never get to really get clarity about things, because the new stuff the new stuff that I'm talking about are new problems and issues that arise, are now entangled in with the old problems and issues that you never took care of. So you're just compacting things on top of things. And when you were saying that about putting stuff into different rooms and trying to hide the things that you didn't want people to see, it reminded me of that. When we do that, we only compact the issues that we have, and it just makes the issues at the bottom, even though we press it down so far, it seems like we don't have that issue anymore because we can't see it, but it's still there, and eventually it will start to rise to the top. And I believe a lot of times the issues that we put on top, the new stuff, actually gives fertilizer to the stuff that's on the bottom, and it causes that other stuff to grow and fester, and then it starts building back up and different things like that. But there are definitely some rooms that I would not want. I won't allow other people to see, because I have those things in my mind where, I can just work it out myself mentally. I can think it through and be okay. And a lot of times it is okay for a while, but it eventually comes back. It eventually comes back out. And no matter how much you pray, no matter how much you say, I'm going to just let things go, no matter how much you say, I'm going to forgive people for different things, that stuff is still there. And the only way sometimes to work it out is by allowing other people in, And it has to be, for me, it has to be someone that is very, very trusted, that I know you're not going to go and tell my stuff to other people. And in my mind, I'm thinking about a licensed clinical counselor or somebody like that, someone who has taken an oath to say whatever you say to me in this space, whatever you say to me is not going to go beyond this area that we agreed to meet in. And I think there are some relationships like that in your personal lives. There are some people that you can just tell them anything, and it's not going to go beyond whatever you say. But then we have to be careful with that too, because you never know what people are thinking. And it can be, oh, we're hunky-dory for now, but then what happens when you start having issues? I remember one time my daughter and her best friend, they got into this huge fight, and they was like, we are not friends anymore, we don't even like each other, blah blah blah. But I knew they had shared a lot of intimate things with each other. And I remember telling my daughter, no matter what y'all are going through right now, I don't know what the cause is, but whatever it is, I said, whatever things were y'all said to each other in private, in confidence of each other, don't go spilling that out now that you're at odds against each other, because that happens a lot, especially with younger people. They get into disagreements and arguments, and then you just spilling all the tea, all the beans, all the coffee grounds, all the other stuff, everything just start coming out. And these are things that this person as a friend told you in confidence. And I think that's one reason why I don't let a lot of people into my rooms, simply because I look at other relationships that these people were supposed to be best friends. They were connected at the hips, and then it all went haywire, and now all their business is all over the street. And that shouldn't be, So I don't take friendship I don't take it lightly, because my definition of having a friend is someone that no matter what happens, whatever confidence was shared within the bounds of that friendship, you're not going to allow that to go out into other places or other spaces, So that's one reason why everybody just can't see my rooms. And then there are some things that I will tell my husband, and I will preface it with, you can't tell anybody else about this, because this is like a very private matter, and I'm trusting you to keep this, with you. I'm not asking you for any resolution or any help or any advice on it. I just need to talk to somebody about it. And because I am married to you, because that's another level of confidence right there that I believe it should be shared between people in that type of relationship within the marriage, that I can tell you things and trust that it's not going to go out into the world and be, there for all the world to see, unless it's something that I want the world to see. So definitely those rooms, and I, in my mind, I was trying to think, okay, name the rooms, and I cannot name the rooms, because like because you have the open, like, I guess what I would consider the living room, where this is the side, that the public side that everybody gets to see,
can see it, yeah.
And I'm at the point in my life now where I don't even put much effort into the living room anymore. I'm not trying to dress it up all pretty and nice and neat and all that. You get what you get, that's the living room. And then I know, just thinking about the rooms in my home, my office, I don't like for anybody to go into my office, because it's not just my office, it's also my sacred space where I spend time with God. So I don't like for anybody to go in there except for me. I even take my shoes off. This is the only place in the whole house that I consistently take my shoes off at the door. I leave my shoes at the door, outside the door, before I step into my office, because I recognize, one, that I'm going in to do work, but also this is the space where I spend time with God. And I have a sofa in my office, and I only sit on that sofa if I'm spending time with God. I don't just sit on the sofa to relax. I don't just sit on the sofa to, I'm just chill out for a minute. No, that sofa is my God time sofa. So I don't let people in the office because of the sacredness of the space for me, which is weird because originally the office was supposed to be an office slash guest bedroom. So if anybody coming over, we only have one extra space. We have an air mattress that we can put in the living room for you. And then we have an extra bedroom with an actual bed in it. But the other space that was supposed to originally be a guest bedroom is no longer a guest bedroom because it's a sacred space now. And no, you cannot go in there interrupting my atmosphere that I've created with God. Because guess what? It's taking me, sometimes I have to struggle to get into the atmosphere. But I know that this is where I can come. Not that that's the only place that I meet God at, but this particular place, I cannot allow other people in it. And then the bedroom, me and my husband's bedroom, I don't want anybody in it. That's our sacred space for me and my husband. You don't need to be in there. You don't need to, yes, it need to be decluttered, but you don't need to be in there. And that's how our relationship, I'm just thinking about this now.
Yeah.
Even your relationship with your spouse, you have to be careful who you allow in there because you never know what motives people have. You never know what they are looking to do. So if I talk to you about my husband, now there's some surface things like I might say about him, like he don't like healthy food. Okay, that's a very surface, superficial thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when we go on deep down, if I'm talking to you, sharing with you things about our relationship, then you should count that as a privilege because that's not a space that everybody gets to go into. And it's just like my space at home, my bedroom at home. Everybody doesn't get to go into there. And then even the kitchen, the way our house is, if you come in through the garage, you have to walk through the kitchen to get into the main living area, which is the living room. The kitchen is not a space that you hang out in simply because of the size of it. But that is one space that when I get my real dream home, I would like for the kitchen to be a communion type area, a fellowship type area with other people, where you nurture people, where you feed them. We don't necessarily have to go to the dining room. We can stay in here where all of the abundance is. If you want to move into the dining room, we can move into the dining room. But being in the kitchen, you have access to everything to help somebody grow. You have the access to feed somebody. You have the access to tools and utensils, different things like that. So there are some people that will be allowed in the kitchen, but those have to be, even with those people, it has to be people that God has assigned to you, because you don't want to give all of your stuff away to people that are not going to either benefit from them, or people that are not going to, you don't want to give them away to people that are going to take advantage of it. Oh, we're just going to go over because we always know she got food. We always know she got this, that, that, but they're not growing. So you don't want to give your place of nourishment or a place of nurturing to people that have no intention of growing. They just have intention of getting fed at certain points of their life. When they can't go nowhere else, then you feed them, and then they just kind of forget about you until they're hungry again. So that's definitely not a space. You want somebody that's going to be consistent, somebody that's going to be supportive of you, because if you and you think about that old saying, you can feed him, you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for one day, but if you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So in the kitchen, you can teach people how to prepare meals. You can teach them how to store food, like if you need to package up food and put it in the freezer for, how to make things last. You don't just throw stuff out because you didn't finish using it. You can find uses for different things in the kitchen. I like to watch a lot of cooking shows, so I see how people use, like, I like those shows that are able to use everything. Like, we're not just going to throw this away just because we're not using it for this particular dish.
We use the leftovers.
Use it, use it for something else.
So before we continue on, I do want to let everybody know to text make me over to 8476 to join the What's in the Cup community. In that particular community, I send out weekly inspirational and encouraging texts to build you up and just to keep you going throughout the week. So again, you can text make me over to 8476 to become a part of the What's in Your Cup community. And thank you all again for joining the Girls Night In podcast. And today we're basically talking about rooms. If your life was a if your life was full of rooms, who would you allow to come into those rooms? Or are there any rooms that you would not allow people to come into? So that's basically what we are talking about today. And some of the things that Katie has been saying, one of the things you said was about the issues, not dealing with issues, in so many words, not dealing with issues, packing them down, and then when other stuff come in, it's just a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the issues that we don't deal with are causing more issues.
Yes.
So they're like new issues, but they're all stemming from the same root that we just don't want to deal with, and it's really weighing us down and it's crowding out our space. And when you was talking about that, I thought about a while back, God was telling me to expand my capacity to receive. And when we pack all of these things down and we're not dealing with stuff and we're not getting to the root issue, we are really stifling and hindering our capacity to receive, because we're full of we're hoarding issues, we're hoarding bad habits, unforgiveness, hurt, pain, and we cannot receive what it is that we need to receive from God until we get rid of some of those things. And I was doing something today. I was actually trading, and when you're trading, it could go either way. The market can go up or down. And if you're thinking the market is going in a direction and you put in your bid for a certain thing to buy or to sell, and then it goes the opposite way, I'm like, okay, I need to get out now. But there was some trades I recently stayed in, and when I looked today, I was like, you just got to get out of these trades, And when I got out, what I heard God was saying to me was something to the effect of, you have to let go in order to gain more or in order to grow. Because all I saw was this big negative number. It was big to me according to what's in my account. But in order for me to continue moving forward with a clear mind, I had to let that go. You have to cut your losses. That's what it was. Let go of your losses in order to gain more. And yes, at times it does seem like it's a tremendous loss and we're not going to recover. But when I look at it, I'm like, if I let this go and I can go back in and do the trade the same way, and I would gain money because of how the market works. But as long as I was holding on to it, whatever I was gaining, that particular thing that I was holding on to was taken away from my profits. I was messing with my money. You don't want nobody messing with your money. And sometimes in our own personal lives, we're holding on to things where we see it's a loss. This relationship is not going to work. This job is not going to work. This what I'm doing in my business, this idea is not going to work, or maybe it's just not going to work the way that you want it to. But when we let those things go, then we're able to gain some things. And when you was also talking about rooms, you mentioned that sometimes other people have to come in and help you clean. And yes, those are people that you must be able to trust. And sometimes we can't get these things done on our own. Because if we could get these things done on our own, they will be done by now. There wouldn't be any issue. And we're saying, I'm gonna get to it, and I'm gonna handle this, and I'm gonna deal with this, and we don't. And we really, it's not that we don't want to. Most times we don't know how to. There are people, and when we're talking about houses, but we're relating this to our lives. But physically, in a natural sense, there are people that don't know how to clean up their home. And someone has to come in and teach them how to do that, or they'll get somebody else to come in. or they just don't like doing it, so they'll pay someone to do it. I know years ago I used to work for a cleaning service, and we went in and we cleaned up people's mess because they didn't want to clean up their mess, so they invested that money so that people can so that they can have someone to come in and clean up their mess. And you were saying a lot about those rooms. You also mentioned sacred spaces. And I think in our own lives, there are places in our lives, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, especially spiritually, that we have our sacred spaces that not everyone can come into those spaces. Not
Yes.
everyone can we engage in conversations with those things. Yes, Sean, exactly. Sean said we have to, let me put a comment, we have to teach, yeah, one at a time. We have to teach at times, yes, because sometimes we just don't know. And instead of being embarrassed by a lot of stuff, because sometimes you can get to the point where you're like, man, I should know this. But instead of keep saying, I should know this, I should know this, and allow pride, have somebody come in and help you. But back
Yes.
to the sacred spaces, there are some things, some conversations that I don't have with some people, and some people I have the conversations with. There's a thing that I'm dealing with, and probably only one person I had this conversation with ever, that I would ever have the conversation concerning this particular thing that's going on in my life. Not a bad thing, not in sin, nothing crazy, but that's who I feel comfortable with. And there's a reason why I do that, because sometimes you start sharing, and maybe people will understand and maybe people won't understand. Maybe someone is going to judge you and someone is not going to judge you. So someone commented, as Sandra said, we free ourselves. What is your time worth? We can't do exactly. What is your time worth? We can't do everything. And that really also goes back to our own personal lives. We're talking about houses, but we're relating it to our lives. So if you want to put in the comments, what is that? If imagine your life as a house with many rooms, how many people do you allow to enter your rooms? And are there some rooms that you just don't want people to come into? So you can, those that are watching us live, you can comment below with that. Yes, we can't talk with everyone about our lives. The Lord put people in our lives for seasons. Exactly. And I'm glad you put that. The Lord put people in our lives for seasons. And it's important that we know our reason, our season is in our lifetime. Because what you talk about someone with last season, that same situation, you may not be able to talk to that person about what's going on in your life. Again, people grow. We have our different places that we're growing, different things that we're doing in life. And maybe that's not the person God will have you to share with in this particular season of your life. And I think we all have to be aware of that. So when it's time for that situation to be over, that relationship to be over, and we move on, that we do that. Because last season someone was keeping your information personal, but in the next season they may be telling everybody. And then we do have to be careful also, because something may have went on with a person that they kept your information, but now something is going on in their life and they're having some issues in their life, so where they would not gossip at one point, but now they're gossiping. Or some people get jealous of your house. You may have, you probably was probably in a space in one season, then God enlarged your territory and he expanded you and you're growing, and that person didn't do what they were supposed to do, or they chose not to grow, or chose not to seek God, or maybe it's just not their time for that, and they can become jealous of you. So where they was helping you build your house, now you were both in the season and they're tearing your house down, and you just can't get those things. But we have to be mindful of those things. So I'm gonna just read some of the comments here. Some seasons are extended and some are just for that particular season. Exactly. Some are extended and some are just for that particular season. The next season they may not be able to handle what they could have handled. Exactly. Because we all are in different places, and where someone saw you last season, they can't see that with you in another season. So I'm single now, but when I get married, I may not talk about some of the things I talk about while I'm a single woman too. Some of the people that I talk about those things too. And for me, I think if everybody when we all become aware of those particular things, we'll have less issues with each other, and there will be less problems with each other. At least you're saying it for real. We must be careful who we allow in our house. Absolutely, we must be careful. Since we're talking about houses, I recently connected with the old friend of mine from school and from the neighborhood or whatever, and I went to pick him up, but he came outside and he was like, "Hey, my aunt don't like everybody in her house. Is it somewhere we can go?" So I was like, "Sure." So we went to my aunt's house, you know. But you have people like that, and sometimes in life, when we're talking about our mental, our spiritual, and our emotional houses, we can't allow everyone in our house. We can't allow everyone in our house, and sometimes you have people, they want to bring everybody in. Even if you're a people person, you have to be careful about
Yeah.
the people that you are connecting yourself with. So again, if we're talking about houses, if your life was a house with many rooms, how many people would you allow to see all of your rooms? Like, I have certain people that I allow to see. Well, no one gets to see all of my rooms. This is what I say. No one gets to know all of my business. However, I don't have any secrets. So there's somebody that I can talk to about different things in my life. And I know once, years ago, a friend told me, she said, "It's not that you are a private person." She said, "You're not really private, you share, but you're just careful what you share." And I think that's just wisdom, that we have to be careful what we share. We have to be careful who we allow into our houses. And when Katie was talking about those sacred places, and here's the comment: everybody can't come into your house. Your house is your sanctuary. Yeah. When you was talking about those sacred places, everyone cannot enter into those sacred places. And let's just be honest: some people have not earned the right or the privilege or the trust to enter in. It's like the mailman. The mailman just can't come hopping up and skipping up in your house. That's just not going to happen. If you have to bring something to the door, or the mail carrier, let me say, if they have to bring something to the door, they just bring something to the door. Hey, First Lady Lewis, how are you? Thank you for joining.
Lisa,
Bring it to the door and leave it there. Yes.
may I say something really quick too?
Yeah.
So, as you were talking about that, I was also thinking, for those of us that might that want to see it in the Word of God, thinking about King Hezekiah, which is one of my favorite characters
Oh,
in the Bible.
yes.
So we
Yes.
all know that Hezekiah was Hezekiah was sick, right? And the king of Babylon's son came after Hezekiah got well and said, "I heard that you were sick, and we're so glad you're doing better." But what Hezekiah did was, he allowed this person to come into his house. He showed him everything in his house. He showed him everything in God's house.
Mm-hmm.
He just let them come in and see everything. And as they were leaving, the prophet came to him and said, "What did those men want?" And Hezekiah was like, "Oh, they just came to wish me well because, they heard I was sick and I got better and blah, blah, blah." "Well, what did you show them?" And he's like, "I showed them everything." And God was angry with Hezekiah, and he told Hezekiah that because of that, then the children of Israel, they were going to be turned over to the Babylonians, and they were going to become their servants and different things like that. But what he did for Hezekiah, because Hezekiah had lived such an exemplary life before him, what he did for Hezekiah, he allowed that not to happen while Hezekiah was alive. So because of Hezekiah's actions of letting these strangers in to see his house, it affected generations that came after him. So we have to be careful that even with our when we letting people in, even if they're wishing us well, you know what, you can send me some flowers to wish me well. You don't have to come in and see everything in my house. It doesn't mean just because you say I care about you or I'm glad that you're doing better, that doesn't mean that you have to go and open up all of your stuff to someone simply because they're being nice to you, because that doesn't only affect us who we let in our house, it affects our future generations who we let in the house. So we have to be careful. Not only did he show them what his possessions, but he also showed him the possessions of God. So he
Mhm.
like literally allowed the enemy to see what belonged to the Lord. And we hear people say, I've heard people say it all the time, that we can't tell everybody what God gives us. And that is so true, because you never know what intent people had. So now when these people came into the house, they got to see what security measures Hezekiah has set up. They got to see how his house functioned, the operations of his house. So they were not only just looking at the house, but they got to see all the secrets of the house, how the house worked, where he was vulnerable at in his house, different things like that. So we have to be the same way that we're not allowing people in, no matter how nice they are to us. We have to definitely have the spirit of discernment when we are allowing people in, because we don't want our mistakes, and we know that things that we do, it do affect our generations, but we want our future generations to be affected in a positive way, to have our actions to have a positive impact on them and not a negative impact, as with what King Hezekiah did. And I'm always intrigued by King Hezekiah, because when he became king, he went in doing everything God wanted him to do. He ripped the idols down. He closed up all of those places where people were worshiping other gods. He did all of that, and his heart was a heart to God. And I really, really love that. But then when you really start getting deep into everything else he did, that one mistake that he made was cause the captivity of future generations for years and years and years. And
Yeah.
so we want to make sure that when we are letting those people, when we are deciding who's coming into our house, that they are people of integrity, that they are people that God has already said it's okay for this person to come in, like we were speaking earlier about the seasons in our lives. So we want to make sure that as we are letting people into our homes and what we are showing them, and just because you let everybody in your house don't mean you have to show them everything that's in your house.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful that just because you're my friend doesn't mean that you get to see all the intimate details of who I am. Because one thing we have to realize too, people define friendship on different levels. What I define a friend as may be totally different than what you define a friend as. Your level of being somebody's best friend might be my level of being somebody's associate. So we have to make sure that we're all on the same page with the people that we are with, so that we will know how far to let them come in different things like that.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Katie. So before we move forward, I just want to let everybody know you're watching the Girls Night In podcast. This is our first episode. And here at Girls Night In, we are here to help you to gain insight that will inspire you, inform you, innovate you, and increase you. And you can go ahead and text "Make Me Over" to 8476 to join the What's in Your Cup community to receive weekly inspirational texts. And we have as our special guest today, again, that's Katie Littles. She is the author of God's Promises Are For Me. It's a devotional. And she also has her own show, Power Surge, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can check her out. I'm not sure if you put your other information in the comments, but if you put it in our private chat, and I can put it up for you. So again, welcome to the broadcast, and I'm going to get some comments here. So someone said, the Lord told some to go and tell no one. We must be mindful of even the Lord instructed not to tell of the healing. Absolutely. You cannot tell everybody what God is doing. Or you can't even tell some people what God has done, even though it happened 10 years ago. You got to be careful who you're talking to. And that reminded me of my well, y'all, me and Katie are sisters, and we have this uncle. So when I said it, my grandmother used to say it too. Don't be getting fooled up with them people. God don't want you fooled up with everybody, y'all. So someone said we must be careful. Satan sends out demons for us. Everyone isn't privy to me. And that goes back to letting strangers inside your house. But Hezekiah was really letting spies into the house.
Oh, yes.
One mistake can and would affect the lineage for years to come. Some people can't go past the doorstep. Absolutely. At Kate, love it. Just we're someone friend doesn't mean they're out. Yeah, just because we're someone friend doesn't mean that they are our friend. Yes, thank you, Sean. That's Chantel. Sean is my friend.
Lisa, when you said that about not letting people in the doorstep, you ever seen people where you only talk to them at the end of your driveway?
Oh yeah,
I've seen that where people only, you can just go to the end of their driveway, and I'm talking about the end that's right by the road, not even the end that's by their front door.
yeah.
They only let you go as far as the driveway and the end of the driveway, and that's
Somebody agrees. Yeah,
because people you do have to protect your, like we've been saying, you have to protect your peace of mind. You have to protect your property. You have to protect your territory.
Yeah,
it's just so many. You have to protect your family, your children, your spouse. There's just so much stuff that we have to be mindful of. And if you feel, you have to know when you're with someone and the spirit just is not right, and you just feel some kind of way, you don't even have to have a reason why. I just don't feel right about this. That's enough reason right there. You know, you don't have to explain yourself. And I remember when I finally learned how to say no without excuse, because even if I would tell somebody no, I would always have to tell them what the reason was why I couldn't do it. You know what? No. Period.
No period.
You don't even have to feel obligated to go beyond that period, because you know what it is. And sometimes the nosy neighbor Gladys, yes. Sometimes you don't know why. It's just the Holy Spirit is like, this isn't right. Get rid of this person.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but Sandra commented, I love this. I'm learning. I never knew how to tell people not to bring everybody to my house. Sandra, I am coming to your house at some point. Please let me in. You have me at the door knocking like, let me in, let me in. Exactly, Sean. No disclaimer, just no. And that reminded me, because I was watching another broadcast this morning, the Brothers of Legacy. I watch them every morning, and they were talking about no. How do you say no? And once me and Katie have a niece, her name is Journey, our great niece. At this time, she was 2 years old. At the time I went to visit their mom house, I don't know why I was there, maybe some holiday, but I was trying to get my sister to braid my hair. I had hair at that point, and she would not do it. So I thought, if I asked Journey to ask her to braid my hair, she's going to do it. So I was like, Journey, could you tell your Nana to braid my hair? And Journey said, no, I will not. A 2-year-old said it. She was like, no, that's like no, period. And I kept asking, like, Journey, could you? She was like, no, I will not. And I was like, I can't believe this little girl is telling me no. And sometimes people are like that. I can't believe they're saying no. I can't believe she said no. I can't believe she didn't show up. No. No means no means no. And that's the end of it. And sometimes when you say no, people wait for an explanation, like, why you can't do it? No, I just can't. I'm not. And it don't even have to be that you can't. You're just not going to do it. It's just not for you to do that. So no means no means no. So I don't see it. No one in the comments wanted. Yeah, I don't see nobody in the comments telling us about their rooms. That's Sean, her brother, little sister. Yes, Sean, that is JCon's little sister. That girl, she was not playing with me that day. So yes, so
Hey, Stephanie.
is Stephanie here? We talking about Stephanie's grandchild.
Yeah, she said it's her turn.
That's her journey. That's her journey. Jern was like, not today, and stop asking me. So in Sean with somebody Sean, I think Sean put that on the comments about strangers and not letting
Yeah.
everybody into your house. And when you was talking about Hezekiah, I thought about spies. Some
Mm-hmm.
people just want to come and spy out your territory. You know, sometimes there are people, they're close with the person, and y'all have like that mutual friend, but that mutual friend really ain't your friend. So the
Mm-hmm.
other person is like, hey, go over there and tell me what you see, and go over there and tell me what they're doing, and go over there and tell, and you'll wonder how your business get out because Judas is all up in your camp, and he's over there telling people your business and what's going on in your house, and you're wondering why everybody know what's going on in your house, because it's someone you're letting in your room that should not be you shouldn't have in your room. And we have to be careful about, and I'm not saying be paranoid, but when God shows you something about someone, be done with it.
Yeah.
Let it go. I don't really like to use the word cut off, but hey, their season is up in your life. Their season is up in your life. And you can sense when people change. You can sense when there's a shift in the conversation. You can sense when there's a shift, like when you get into someone's presence. You can sense when there's a shift. So you have to be careful about those things and stop brushing. So I used to brush stuff off. I used to be like, oh, nah, that's a devil. No, the person you can
Guess
get
what?
rid of was the devil. You know, oh, that person can't do that. Yeah, yes, they not that they can and did and
Yeah.
doing it. And folks do that. Everybody be careful. We all know we all know a Judas. And what I do not live by is that I keep my friends
Freeze
close, but my
close enough.
enemies closer.
Keep
I
my
don't,
yeah.
yeah, I don't want my enemies close to me. And Judas had a purpose, because his purpose was to push the purpose of God right along. But hey, Judas could have been like, hey, God, use somebody else. So,
And Lisa, we also have to be careful about teaming up with our enemies.
oh,
Um,
yeah, I'm not
because
into
I was
that.
in a situation one time where I was working with this man, and we always bumped heads. I just thought he was shady and shisty and just getting over on the company personally. That's my own personal belief. Because it said it in the reports. If you read the reports correctly, you will see that he was. So this other lady was working there, and we didn't really mesh too well either. And so one day, he came to me, and we was talking about this situation, and I was like, oh yeah, so and so did this, that, and the other. And then he was like, all of a sudden, now you my buddy, because we in agreement about this same person. And before we even finished that conversation, the Holy Spirit brought this saying to me of enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I was like, what? And he said, an enemy of my enemy is my friend, meaning two enemies will team up together when they have a common enemy. When they have a common enemy, they will team up together and forge this friendship in order to take out this other enemy. So what I immediately did was tell myself, you know what? You don't need to be having no conversations about this person with that other person, because when he go down, you going down with him. And I refuse to go down with this person who I knew was not a person of integrity. And yes, I had my issues with this other person, but you know what? I'm gonna let the Lord work that out. I'm not gonna allow you to come in with your scheming and conniving and knowing how to do things to make it look like you wasn't even involved with stuff. And then I'm the one that's taking the fall for everything when the situation blow up. So thankfully, I immediately disconnected myself from that person, only if it was work pertaining to actions that I had to be directly involved with that particular person. But if it involved other people, I would direct that person to go and speak to those other people, but on their own, and not to come to me as a go between, as that third person. Because look, I'm not going down because you decided you're gonna kill two birds with one stone. Sir, I am not a bird getting hit by your stone, not today. So we have to be careful of that too, that we don't build those relationships with those people that we know are our enemies simply because we have another enemy in common. Oh, Lisa, you're muted.
Oh, so I was muted. I forgot I muted myself. So we're going to come to a close. I want to thank everyone who joined us on this afternoon, and join us again next Monday at 12 p.m. where we will have a special guest, a surprise guest. I will be bringing on, so we can have conversations just about life. Again, this is Girl Night in podcast, where you can gain insight that will inspire you, inform you, innovate you, and increase you. And I hope all of that you received all of that on, excuse me, this afternoon. And my guest today was Katie Littles, and you can watch Power Surge Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the God's Promises Are For Me Facebook page. And she also has a book, God's Promises Are For Me. And can they find that information on your Facebook page?
Yes, and the book is Meditating on the Promises of God.
Meditating on the Promises of God. And she just let me
I put it in the comments earlier.
And you know what?
Yeah, I put it in the comments earlier. But you can find it on Amazon. And it's a book of 100 promises from the Word of God that we can all meditate on, so that we can learn how to live promise-filled lives.
Okay, I am so sorry, because I read the book every morning, basically almost every morning. So again, text make me over to 8476 to join the What's in Your Cup community, where I send out weekly inspirational texts throughout the week, usually on a Wednesday. If you need to get in contact with me, you can do that at gUrlznite@gmail.com, and that's gUrlzniteinvip@gmail.com. Again, like I said, we'll be back here next Monday for another episode of the Girls Night In podcast. And if you want to know a little bit more about me, you can always visit my website at the Lifestyle Makeover .online. I'm also the author of a book, What's Cramping Your Lifestyle, From Limitations to a Life of Unlimited Possibilities, that I like to call Life Coaching in a Book. It comes along with a companion workbook, and you can find that on the Lifestyle Makeover .online. I also have apparel and other courses that you can check out on that particular website. So again, I want to thank you, Katie, for joining us on this afternoon. I just want to make sure I got all our comments from our viewers today, and just thank you all for watching us on this afternoon. So until the next time, everyone, goodbye and God bless.